So hopefully you watched the video on how to know when it is time to hire. Because today I'm going to talk about the top things that you need to consider before you hire. So again, this video is going to be extremely helpful to any solopreneur turning into company leader, business owner. And I do find that this is also going to be some good tips for those of you that might be leaders of a department, leaders of a team, working for a corporation. Wherever you are, I want you to go ahead and get your notebook open, get your pen out, and take some notes. Let's go. All right, so I'm Hannah Thurgant. I'm the founder of Career Image Solutions, where we specialize in all things hiring, all things workforce development. So for years, even before I started the company, I had been working with employees at different organizations and even individual working professionals just about how to optimize their career. But one of the things that I've learned is that there's not a lot of information out here that's really pertaining to the employer, some of the best practices. So everybody talks about it from a business standpoint, but I really want to kind of break things down from a human standpoint. So here we go. I'm going to share some of the things that I have learned in growing and scaling a company, and I hope that these things are helpful for you as well. So one of the things I think you should consider before hiring, first thing is that you should absolutely write down what you no longer want to do or should not be doing. Right? Everybody knows that when you wear the hat of a CEO, whether you wear the hat of a hiring official, there are things that you just absolutely dread. And there's some things that only you can do. So you might hate doing it, but you might as well get over it because you're going to be the one that has to do it, right? But there are some things that you might be doing because there's nobody else around that can do it, or you might be doing these things because there are people around but may not necessarily be competent enough to do it. So I want you to kind of just act like this is a clean slate here. You are not thinking about the person you already have on the team. This is not a person-driven list. This is strictly you looking at the task. Write down everything you no longer want to do, and I want you to go ahead and write down all the things that you should not be doing. I know it's been reversed, right? Because many people just say, oh, write down all the things that you do want to do. I'm telling you to do it in reverse, and you will begin to see some of the things that maybe you might be picking up that you shouldn't be picking up, or again, some of the things that maybe you just have to do, right? Because let's just say it's processing invoices. You might be the only person that has access to that invoice system and have the security clearance to be able to do so. So that's just one example, okay? Second thing to consider, you want to take that same list and you want to compartmentalize that list by function, okay? So I literally just did this today for a client. They are looking for a new business manager, and I heard them out, had a hiring strategy discussion with them. And what I ended up doing was I listened to them, all the things they no longer want to do, and I compartmentalized them, right? So I put them under key functions. So I'm like, it sounds like this person is going to be responsible for stakeholder engagement. Sounds like this person is going to be responsible for calendar management. It sounds like this person is going to be responsible for personal assistance, right? And or admin tasks. It sounds like this person is going to be responsible for, accounts payable, accounts receivable. So putting things under buckets, right? So again, compartmentalize that list, and you want to do that by function. Okay? Because sometimes you'll find that when you do it by function, it will make it a whole lot more clear as to what type of person you need to hire. All right? Now, the third thing I want you to do is to compartmentalize this same list. I want you to compartmentalize it by frequency. And here's what I mean. When you look at all the things that you do that you no longer want to do or you should not be doing, and when you compartmentalize it by function, let's just take stakeholder engagement as a function, right? Then you want to look at those items that's underneath of that section. When you look at that list, I want you to look at how often do you have to do those things, right? So contact vendors, let's just say that's a task under stakeholder engagement. How often will this incumbent have to contact the vendors? Is it on a daily basis? Is it on a weekly basis? And again, I know some of you are thinking, well, it depends. I know it depends, but on average, do you think that they'll have to do it on a weekly basis? Worst case scenario, how often would they have to do it, right? Not best case, worst case scenario, how often would they have to do that? You want to start looking at each task and maybe just kind of putting a little bullet next to it or a little letter next to it to determine the frequency. D for daily, W for weekly, M for monthly, right? And A for ad hoc. It might just be a project type of thing, or even Q for quarterly. That's going to be extremely important, and you will hear why, okay? So again, so far you've written down your list about what you no longer want to do or should not be doing. Then you're going to compartmentalize that list by the key functions. Then you're going to compartmentalize it by frequency. Now, consideration number 4, I want you to estimate the hours that it might take to do those things. So again, remember those things that you marked with a D, the things that you marked with a W, the things that you marked with a Q, whatever, right? You're going to now estimate the time that it takes to do those things. Now, what I'm hoping is that majority of the things that you're asking somebody else to do, I'm hoping that you have some type of exposure to how to do it. I'm not saying that that's a necessity. However, it is helpful to estimate hours once for something that you kind of know how to do it. Maybe you're not the best at it, but you've done it before. But again, do not get discouraged if you've never done it before, right? But you want to estimate the hours that it might take. If you can't figure out the hours that it might take, maybe you just go online, or maybe you ask a friend with it, and maybe you just don't know, and that's okay. So the things that you can estimate, you want to go ahead and estimate. The things that you cannot estimate, maybe to the T, if it's, let's just say, budgeting, right? I've been doing a lot of financial stuff this week with all of my examples, if you can't tell. But with budgeting, for example, suppose you never put together a budget, but in your brain, you kind of know that it shouldn't take you more than 5 hours to do a budget for your size, the size of the company that you have. Or maybe you're like, it shouldn't take more than 15 hours to do, right? So again, you can still estimate even if you've never done it. And trust me, you'll get clearer and clearer, especially when you start interviewing, all right? So that's consideration number 4. You wanna estimate the hours that it might take to do those things, those from your list, the daily things, weekly, monthly, right? All right, consideration number 5. You wanna determine your budget. Hopefully you have a really good accountant or really good bookkeeper. When you hire an HR, especially any HR professionals from Career Image Solutions, we are best friends with accountants. We are best friends with CPAs. We are best friends with your financial accounting team. We are always asking questions about your financials. Not because we're trying to get a piece of that pie, but strictly because we know that every people decision that we make has a bottom line impact on your dollars and your cents, right? So we want to make sure that you consider what your budget is. That's the whole piece of you having a strategic HR partner, so that way we can work with you on holistically about your organization, not just about a specific role. So you want to talk to whoever is managing your finances, your accountant, say, hey, I'm looking to hire, because depending on whether you're hiring an employee versus independent contractor, you want to see that you have that room in your budget to be able to do so. Okay, so you want to determine your budget. Just don't go online and look to see how much people are paying. Now, don't get me wrong, that is helpful for you to see what other people are paying. But here's some things I want you to know, especially when determining your hiring budget. Some of the information that you all are looking at online are just not completely accurate. And secondly, the information that you don't see is the size of the organization. You don't get to see that the organizations that's paying, $50 an hour are already making hundreds of millions of dollars, and they can afford to do that, right? You may have a different budget, which is why I'm a huge advocate of starting with your budget first. Let me also tell you, you can have a philosophy. There are some companies, when we work with our clients, we always ask them, what is your compensation philosophy? Are you paying below market? Are you paying at market? Or are you paying above market? Do not believe the hype. There are some people that will still work with you, even if you are not paying market. It just means that you now have to work with an HR professional, so that way you can go ahead and build some incentives around that to be more attractive to that person. Not everybody is incentivized by money. People have different scenarios, right? So again, don't get discouraged if you go in Glassdoor and you see that, oh my gosh, they're paying somebody $75 an hour and you don't have that in your budget. Start with your list first. Who do you need? I'm telling you, if you just follow these steps and not think about all of the outside noise, you will be more clear regarding who you need to hire, okay? So after you've determined your budget, consideration number 6 is that you want to determine when you have capacity to onboard. So essentially, I'm saying it's time for you to go ahead and put together your timeline to hire. One of the things I have seen that most employers are making these days is that they're like, oh, I need to hire yesterday. I need somebody in here yesterday. And then our recruitment team is thebomb.com. So they will then go and present 5 candidates, and guess what happens? Oh, we can't start them for another month, but I thought you needed them yesterday. And really it's because they didn't take into consideration when they can actually onboard, because it takes time to onboard. It takes time. Do you have the capacity to onboard? Do you have the time? Right? When that person comes in, will you have the time to walk them through, or are you just trying to throw them to the wolves? Even the expert of all experts will still need someone to share how you do things where you are, right? So you want to determine when you have the capacity to onboard, and that should then dictate your timeline. I know you need somebody yesterday, but guess what? You've been functioning all along, and if you have to push something out for another week, you will be just fine. I promise you, you will still live, okay? So determine the capacity of when you'll be able to onboard, so that way you can use that as your timeline. If you know realistically that you won't be able to onboard somebody for another 3 months, then maybe you hire a consultant interim until you're able to bring somebody in, on a full-time or a more steady rate, right? Last but not least, tip or consideration number 7 is that you want to create an onboarding plan. So again, this is one of the things I feel like people miss out on the most. You want to create a document, and if you are looking for a sample onboarding plan, feel free to reach out to our team. You'll see the information below. But the onboarding plan is an excellent way for you to really be realistic about what you expect the person to do when they first start. My recommendation is that you create at least a 1-week onboarding plan. But the best practice, at least the clients I work with, we work with them so that they are creating a 30-day onboarding plan, right? So what are they going to do on day 1? They're going to make sure they get access to all of the systems. Day 2, they're going to do blah, blah, blah. And it kind of forces your hand, because if you're putting it in writing, then you get to now think, well, oh my gosh, if they need access to this, that means I need to go in and change the password. Oh my goodness, I need to go in and create for them an email address. Oh, I need to go, so on and so forth, right? And it helps you reduce turnover. It helps you maintain your sanity. It just helps with a whole number of things. Now, can the onboarding plan change? Absolutely. But you want to have a plan. Listen, I hope that these considerations were helpful. If they were, I want to know about it in the comment section below. And if you have any questions about hiring either your first hire or your next hire, I want you to know that Career Image Solutions is your team. So why don't you go ahead and post your questions or comments below, and let me know which considerations you're going to use for the next time that you hire. All right, everybody, until next time, don't forget to command your day.